Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we grab a stack of research on spirituality or meditation, I kind of expect to be greeted by a certain aesthetic.
Hmm.
You know the vibe I'm talking about. Soft lighting, the smell of sandalwood, maybe some gentle wind climbs in the background. It's all very soft.
Right. It's the wellness aesthetic. It's about relaxation, de-stressing, maybe finding a little bit of inner peace in a chaotic world. It's all designed to make you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But the documents we are covering today,
Hmm.
they take that entire aesthetic, crumple it up, and throw it directly into a blast furnace.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We are stripping away the incense, we're dimming the mood lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and we are looking at spirituality through a lens that, honestly, I think a lot of people are going to find surprising.
Maybe even a little jarring.
Yes, jarring. We're looking at it through the lens of cold, hard, precise mathematics.
It is a fascinating pivot. Usually when we talk about mantras, meditation, or anything in that realm, I mean, whether it's on shows like Soul Boom with Rainn Wilson, or even some of the deeper discussions on the School of Greatness with Lewis Howes, the whole conversation is dominated by feelings.
Totally. It's about vibes.
It's about vibes, it's about intention, it's about how it makes you feel in your heart. But the source material we have today just flips that completely on its head.
Yeah.
It argues that if you want real power, and we're talking not just relaxation, but actual altered consciousness,
Yeah.
you need to stop worrying about your feelings and start worrying about your calculator.
Exactly. We are diving into the world of mantra science. And I love that the source emphasizes the word science. Our guide for this deep dive is a figure who goes by the name Osman.
Right.
He's also known as the blind Muslim yogi, or my personal favorite bit of branding, the man from Oz.
And his profile alone is worth a pause because it sits at such a unique intersection of worlds.
It really does. He describes himself as a master-level bioenergy healer. He claims telepathic capabilities, which we'll get into. He specializes in critical care and terminal illnesses.
And this isn't someone who took a weekend workshop. He's been practicing advanced yoga and meditation for 50 years.
50 years. That is half a century of grind. And what's so cool is that he brings this very rigorous, almost engineering mindset to spirituality. He's not just pulling from one tradition.
No, not at all. He talks about blending traditions from the Far East, the Middle East, the West, and even the scientific community. He's bringing in principles of like quantum entanglement to explain how this stuff works.
That blend is key, I think. He's not just reciting tradition for tradition's sake. He's looking for what he calls the practical takeaways. He wants to know what actually moves the needle.
And the central thesis we're unpacking today is his guide to what he calls advanced mantra practices.
So the mission for this deep dive is to decode that guide. And, a fair warning to everyone listening, this isn't about how to de-stress after a long meeting.
Yep.
Osman is talking about achieving siddhis, which are these mystical powers, and completely altering your consciousness. And the way to get there isn't by lighting a candle and feeling good for 5 minutes.
Not even close. It's through sheer, overwhelming numerical volume.
It's the gamification of enlightenment.
It really is. But instead of points, you're just racking up repetitions. Millions of them.
So let's unpack this, because the first thing that really grabbed me was this debate of quality versus quantity. I think most of us have been taught that, if your heart isn't in it, it doesn't count.
Right. Don't just mumble the words, feel them.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And Osman says, not exactly.
Right. He tackles this head on. He mentions hearing a podcast discussion, and this is a debate you hear all the time in circles like the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, or even on the Joe Rogan Experience when they get into discipline and practice. The argument is almost always that you should focus on the quality, the flow state, the feeling. And Osman's take is pretty blunt. He says, yes, quality is important, but quantity is what keeps you on track.
He actually says that if you rely on quality, just sitting there trying to feel amazing for 5 minutes, you're not going to get anywhere. He thinks that might work for what? 1 in a million people.
Right, for some prodigy. But for the rest of us, he says that approach is a trap.
It's the 5 minutes of feeling it myth.
It is. And we like it because it's easy. It feels efficient. Oh, I had a really high-quality 5-minute meditation. But Osman argues that to harness the actual power of the mantra, to get the vibration to physically change your body, you need duration, you need volume.
He uses a very visceral analogy for this, which I thought was brilliant.
The fire one.
The fire one, yeah. He says, if you put your finger in the fire, it burns whether you mean it to or not.
That is such a great line. It burns whether you mean it to or not.
It just cuts through all the fluff.
Exactly. It's a mechanical cause and effect.
Yeah.
If the mantra has power, if it's a highly positioned science, as he calls it, then the vibration itself is the fire. You don't need to be in a state of holy bliss for fire to burn you.
You just need to touch it.
You just need to touch it. And in this context, touching it means saying the words over and over and over again.
So the vibration trumps the mindset. You could be bored, you could be tired, you could be thinking about your grocery list. But if your tongue is making the sounds, the fire is doing the work.
To a degree, yes. He emphasizes that the vibration needs to happen. And this leads us to the specific numbers. Because if we accept that quantity is king, the next logical question is, okay, how much quantity?
And this is where it gets really, really precise.
Incredibly precise, because Osman is correcting a very common misconception here.
So we all know the number 108, right? If you've ever done a yoga class or bought a set of mala beads, you know there are usually 108 beads on them.
Correct. 108 is the foundational number in these traditions. And Osman explains that the 8 is non-negotiable. He says it refers to the 8 siddhis, those mystical powers like becoming heavy as a mountain or light as a feather, and also the 8 qualities of God.
Okay, so the 8 is important. But here is where the math gets tricky. He says most people think if they do a round of 108, or maybe 10 rounds of 108, they're good.
Which would be 1,080, a nice round number.
Right. But he clarifies that the minimum daily count for advanced practice isn't 108, and it isn't even 1,080. It is specifically 1,008.
1008. This is a crucial distinction. Many people use a standard rosary or mala. Some have 108 beads, but many actually have 100 beads for easier counting.
Right, so you do 10 rounds and you get 1,000.
Exactly. You do 10 rounds of a 100-bead rosary, you have 1,000. And Osman emphasizes that you cannot stop there. You have to manually, consciously add the 8.
So you do your 1,000, and then you have to, just count on your fingers, 1, 2, 3, up to 8.
Yes, or whatever method you use, but you have to add that 8.
Ah.
And he warns that if you do 1,007 or 1,009, one too few or one too many, he says, by some authorities and scholars, it is not counted.
Wow.
He says you might lose the benefit of the mantra.
That is incredibly strict. It's like a combination lock. If the code is 100-8 and you accidentally type in 1009, the safe doesn't open. It doesn't matter that you were close.
It doesn't matter at all. And this reinforces that idea of mantra science. It's not an art, it's a formula. He says he likes to follow the rules of mantra science. And the rule is you need that extra 8 to lock it in.
It's interesting that he points out other authorities might disagree. He says some scholars say 1,080 is fine.
Yeah, he acknowledges that. But he's very clear that in his lineage, and based on his own expensive research, the target is 1,008. So for the purposes of this advanced practice, that's the number.
Okay, so 1,008 is the daily hygiene. That's the brushing your teeth level.
That's the bare minimum to stay in the game.
But then he starts talking about the big goals, the level 1 accomplishment. And this is where the math just gets staggering. We were talking about 1 crore.
1 crore. And for those who aren't familiar with the Indian numbering system, 1 crore is 10 million.
10 million repetitions.
10 million. Osman defines this as level 1 accomplishment. This represents a complete cycle where the mantra's power is, in his words, fully actualized in the practitioner.
I can't even wrap my head around 10 million. If I tried to count to 10 million, I'd be old.
Well, let's look at the timeline because he breaks this down mathematically, which is one of the most compelling parts of this.
Okay.
Let's say you take the slow path. You're a busy person, you have a family, a job. You commit to that daily minimum of 1,008 repetitions. How long do you think it takes to hit 10 million?
I mean, 1,000 a day. That's 365,000 a year. So to get to 10 million, I don't know, a long time.
It is approximately 27 to 30 years.
30 years.
27 to 30 years of daily practice, never missing a single day, just to reach level 1.
That is dedication.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a lifetime commitment for most people.
It is. And remember what he says about life happening. Dinners, parties, emergencies. You have to navigate all of that for 3 decades without a single miss.
And he also makes a point that this is just level 1. You do 30 years of work and you're just getting started. He brings up the example of Rishi Vasishta.
Yes, to keep our egos in check. Rishi Vasishta, one of the 7 great sages in Hindu tradition, Osman notes that Vasishta had to do 7 lifetimes of chanting and sacrifices before he gained the maximum accomplishment.
7 lifetimes. So our 30 years is what, just a drop in the bucket?
It's the warm-up lap in the grand cosmic scheme. But Osman does assure us that hitting 10 million isn't for nothing. He says you're going to achieve major benefits. It won't be minor. You will see noticeable changes in your reality and your capabilities.
Okay, so 30 years is the scenic route, but he offers an accelerated path.
Yes. for those who want to get there a little faster.
I'm interested in the accelerated pass. How do we speed this up?
You increase the daily volume. He suggests that once you become proficient, you can do about 3,000 repetitions a day.
3,000.
And he says once your tongue gets used to it, that might take you about 30 minutes.
Wait. 3,000 reps in 30 minutes? That's 100 reps a minute. That's more than one a second. That seems incredibly fast.
It sounds fast, I know. But remember, these mantras can be very short, just vibrating sounds. And he talks about proficiency. He compares it to reciting the alphabet.
Ah, the ABCD analogy.
Right. Think about how fast you can say A, B, C, D, E, F. You don't have to think A, then B, then C. It's just a stream of muscle memory.
It just flows.
It flows. He says the tongue gets used to the vibration, the mind focuses on the sound itself, but the speed increases naturally over time. If you can hit that 3,000 per day mark, you cut the time down from 30 years to about 9 or 10 years.
Okay, 10 years better than 30. That's a huge difference, but it's still a decade of your life.
Still a major commitment. But then there is the high volume path.
Right.
10,000 repetitions per day.
10,000.
That brings you to the goal in about 3 years.
3 years. Now that feels doable. I mean, it's incredibly intense, but it feels like a finite project you could actually complete.
It does.
But 10,000 a day. If 3,000 takes about 30 minutes, then 10,000 is going to take, what, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours every single day?
Probably closer to 2 hours, yeah, depending on the length of the mantra and your speed. But then, just to show what is humanly possible, Osman mentions a teacher of his. This is the extreme path.
This part blew my mind.
This teacher did 100,000 repetitions per day.
100,000?
A day.
How is that even physically possible? Your mouth would get tired, your brain would melt.
It requires an immense speed and likely almost every waking hour dedicated to just the hum of the mantra. But this teacher reached the 10 million mark, the 1 crore, in just over 3 months.
3 months. From zero to superhero in a single fiscal quarter.
Essentially. But notice the trade-off. It's always the same price. You can pay with time 30 years of gentle, consistent practice, or you can pay with intensity 3 months of absolute, all-consuming immersion. But the cost is the same, 10 million reps.
The math doesn't change?
The math doesn't change, only the variable of time changes.
That is a fascinating way to look at spirituality. It's an economy. You have a debt to pay to the universe to unlock this power, and you can pay it in small installments or one massive lump sum.
Precisely. And this brings us to what Osman calls the most critical rule, regardless of which speed you choose. The no-miss days rule.
Come hell or high water, he says.
He is incredibly strict about this. He compares it to daily hygiene. You don't say, oh, I'm too busy to brush my teeth this week. It has to be that non-negotiable.
He talks about his own practice. He said at certain stages of his life, he was practicing up to 18 hours a day.
18 hours. That leaves, what, 6 hours for sleeping, eating, everything else?
It's an insane level of discipline. But it explains the foundation of his thinking. When you've done that, a couple hours a day seems manageable.
It frames the whole conversation. And he specifically warns about the human factor, the chaos of daily life. This is why he says early morning is best before sunrise.
Right. Because nobody is calling you for dinner at 4 a.m. There are no parties. No emergencies usually happen that early.
It's risk management. If you leave your practice until 8 p.m., the day has had a chance to attack you and derail you. If you do it at 4 a.m., you secure the win before the game even starts.
But I need to ask this. What happens if you do miss a day? Let's say you're on year 26 of the slow path, you're so close, and you get the flu, or there's a family emergency, or you just forget. Does the counter reset to 0? Do you lose your 26 years of work?
This is a fascinating and, frankly, merciful detail in his mantra science. He says you don't lose the total accumulated count.
Oh, thank God.
But the system operates on a lock mechanism. It counts in sets of 10,080.
10,080.
Yes. This is essentially 10 days of the minimum practice plus a little buffer, but the specific number he uses is 10,080. It seems that for every 10,080 repetitions you complete, the energy locks into your body. It becomes yours permanently.
Okay, so that's a save point, like in a video game.
Exactly. It's a checkpoint. But if you are in the middle of a set, say you've done 5,000 of that current block of 10,080, and then you miss a day, you lose that unsecured progress. You fall back to the last lock point.
So you don't go back to 0, But you lose the progress since the last checkpoint.
Correct. It allows for the human factor, doesn't wipe you out completely for one mistake, but it still heavily penalizes inconsistency. It's a very robust system he's describing.
It really is a very thought-out system.
Yeah.
And we should circle back to expectations here. You mentioned earlier that 10 million is level 1. Does that mean once you hit 10 million, you get all the CDs? You're essentially a wizard.
Not necessarily. Osman is very clear about this. He says, and I'm quoting here, "Very important to know that when you achieve the accomplishment of 10 million, it doesn't mean that you're going to get all the CDs. This is only accomplishment 1. There might be multiple levels required."
Right, the Rishi Vasishta example. 7 lifetimes.
Exactly. It puts it all in perspective. It's a mountain range, not just a single peak you climb and then you're done.
And speaking of mountain ranges and guides, this is where the conversation takes a really sharp turn. Because usually, when people want to learn these advanced things, mantras, kundalini, shakti, they go looking for a guru. They look for a teacher to initiate them.
Right. You seek diksha or initiation. It's a cornerstone of many traditions. You see it in Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi, the works of Swami Sivananda, Ramakrishna.
Yeah.
The guru is the guide.
And Osman. Well, he has a very, very strong warning about this. In fact, it's less of a warning and more of a 5-alarm fire bell.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words here at all. He basically says, stay away.
He calls them energy vampires. He claims that 99% of gurus are ruthless.
Ruthless bastards was the phrase he used, I believe.
He did. He apologized for the language, but he said he used it because he wanted to emphasize the extreme danger.
His theory is that these figures, even the ones who look normal or speak very eloquently, are often looking to steal a student's latent spiritual power.
This is the Shakti he's talking about, right? The life force.
Exactly. He believes many people are walking around with these hidden spiritual gifts or a high-voltage life force that they aren't even aware of. A guru, who has the spiritual eye, can see this potential. And instead of nurturing it, Osman claims they tap into it. They drain it for themselves.
It reminds me of the conversations you sometimes hear on a show like Buddha at the Gas Pump with Rick Archer. Rick interviews hundreds of spiritually awakened people, and while many are genuine, there is this recurring theme of the fallen guru or the teacher who abuses their power. Osman seems to be taking that caution to the absolute extreme.
He is. He's basically saying the default assumption should be that the person is dangerous. He aligns more with the cautionary tales you find in the works of Gopi Krishna or Dr. Bonnie Greenwell when they write about Kundalini, that if this powerful energy is mishandled or manipulated by someone with bad intentions, the damage can be severe and long-lasting.
So if 99% of gurus are off limits, what is the alternative? How do you get initiated if you don't go to a master?
Osman advocates for the DIY approach. Self-initiation.
Which sounds safer, for sure, but doesn't work as well.
He argues it works better, and he gives a very technical reason why. He suggests using pranayama-specific breathwork techniques to awaken your spirituality safely. He says that when a guru initiates you, they often only clear the blockages along the spine, the sushumna nadi.
Okay, that sounds important.
It is, but it's incomplete. He says the pranayama method, specifically the protocols he teaches, unblocks all 114 energy centers in the body simultaneously.
114. So it's a much more comprehensive awakening.
That's his argument. He says it's much safer because you are in control, you aren't compromising your life force to another person, and the progression is actually more substantive. He mentions it's not uncommon for his students to have out-of-body experiences fairly quickly because they are unlocking the whole system, not just one central channel.
And he provides these protocols for free. Right. This isn't a sales pitch for a $5,000 course on how to awaken yourself.
That's the interesting part. He points people directly to his YouTube channel, The Man from Oz. He specifically mentions a favorites playlist where he has put the protocols for this breathwork. He wants people to be able to do this themselves, secretly and silently.
He actually says that, doesn't he? Don't mention to other people you're spiritual. Keep it a secret.
Yeah, he says if you walk around announcing it, you might attract those energy vampires.
Not everyone is normal, he says. It's a very protective, almost survivalist approach to spirituality. Develop your power, keep your head down, do the math, and hit your 10 million.
It's incredibly empowering, though. It basically says you don't need a gatekeeper. You have the hardware, your body and your breath, and you have the software, the mantra, and the math. You just need to run the program. Exactly. It mirrors what we're starting to see in the biohacking community, like what you might hear on the Huberman Lab podcast. Professor Andrew Huberman talks about protocols, light exposure, temperature, specific breathing patterns to control your biology. Osman is essentially giving a spiritual protocol. It's not about faith. It's about executing the code correctly.
Which brings us back to the man himself, because you have to ask, who is this guy giving this incredibly specific, incredibly demanding advice? We touched on his bio, but the details are really fascinating.
Osman, the blind Muslim yogi.
Let's reiterate his credentials, because they are substantial and they provide the context for all this.
Absolutely. He mentions attaining his first samadhi experience at age 19.
And samadhi is, that's the peak, right? In yogic terms, that's absorption into the divine, the pinnacle of meditative absorption.
It is, and he says he's been maintaining a kundalini awakening daily for decades. But what I find most compelling is how he applies this. He's not just sitting in a cave meditating. He's an active healer.
And not for minor stuff. His website and his materials list critical care, terminal illness, and stubborn conditions where medication fails.
He's working at the very edges of what is medically possible, and he attributes his high success rate to this rigorous practice. The 18-hour days, the millions of mantra reps, that's the engine behind his healing work.
He says that even now, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day just to sharpen the sword.
Which is why he says he has this uncommon ability to heal on very serious levels. It also explains why his services are premium. He's very upfront that his consultation fees are not inexpensive.
Right? And he justifies that by the 50 years of investment and the high success rates. He wants to be very clear, though, that his services are not a replacement for medical treatment.
Yes, he's very ethical about that. It's meant to be complementary, to enhance what other medical fields might be lacking.
We should also talk about the breadth of his knowledge, because he's not just pulling from one tradition.
No, he's studied extensively from the Far East, the Middle East, and the West. If you look at someone like Deepak Chopra, they are great at synthesizing ancient wisdom for a modern audience. Osman seems to be doing something similar, but with a much harder, more disciplined edge on the practice side. He's referencing figures like Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, but he's also talking about quantum entanglement.
And his healing work, he says, is telepathic. He uses the principles of quantum entanglement to heal people at a distance.
Which is a bold claim, but it's consistent with his entire worldview. To him, energy and consciousness are not bound by physical space.
And he has this very touching story about his work with animals, which I think illustrates his point beautifully.
Oh, the Animal Foundation in Sweden?
Yes. He talks about sending healing energy to a group of 200 animals that have been traumatized or abused. He says they have PTSD.
And he works with a woman there named Emily.
Right. And he describes Emily as having this higher brain capacity unlocked. He says she can communicate with plants and animals. She just understands them. And Osman treats this not as some magical one-off superpower that only she has.
No, he calls it a higher brain capacity available to all humans.
That's the so what of this for me.
Yeah.
He sees these incredible things, telepathy, interspecies communication, remote healing, as biological functions we just haven't turned on yet.
Yeah.
And the mantra counts, the breath work. That's the switch.
It's a potential that's lying dormant in all of us, waiting for the code to be entered.
Now, we have to talk about the commercial side, because there's a very funny, very specific, and very modern offer he makes.
The $5 fix.
I love this. He says, for less than the price of a Starbucks coffee, he will give you a 10-minute telepathic anxiety fix.
It's such a brilliant contrast. You have this ancient Vedic math, 10 million repetitions, samadhi at 19, 7 lifetimes of practice, and then I can zap your anxiety for $5.
Telepathically, to any location.
It shows a really pragmatic side. He's so confident in the mechanism, in the quantum entanglement and bioenergy transfer, that to him, distance is irrelevant. And he directs people to his website for that, yogawellness786.com.
That's YOGAWELNESS786.com.
Correct. It's a blend of the sacred and the gig economy, but it also makes it incredibly accessible. He's not asking for your life savings to prove his abilities. He's asking for $5 to prove a point.
It's confident, and it aligns with his general vibe. He's a master, he knows what he can do, but he's also the man from Oz. He's putting it out there for you to test.
And beyond his paid services, he mentions the free YouTube channel, and also that people can refer to his website for his Patreon channel for those who want to support his work and maybe get more access.
So let's synthesize this whole thing. We started with the idea of mantra as pure math. We looked at the sheer volume required, 1,008 a day minimum, not 1,080, and 10 million for the first level of mastery.
We looked at the timeline, anywhere from a grueling 3 months to a patient 30 years, depending on your intensity.
We discussed the mechanics vibration over feeling, the finger in the fire analogy that just cuts through everything. And we looked at the stark warnings. Avoid the gurus, Do the work yourself. Protect your energy.
It's a rigorous, disciplined, almost militaristic approach to spirituality, but it's also deeply hopeful because it puts the control completely and totally in your hands.
That's the key takeaway for me. It removes all the ambiguity. You don't have to wonder, am I doing it right? Do I have enough faith? Am I feeling it enough today?
You just look at your counter.
Yeah.
Did you do the numbers? If yes, you are progressing. If no, you aren't. It's that simple.
It's the ultimate accountability partner, the calculator.
Indeed.
So here's my provocative thought for you, for the listener today. We live in a world of instant gratification. We want the hack. We want the 5-minute abs of spirituality. We want the app that gives us enlightenment in 10 minutes a day.
And Mel Robbins or Tony Robbins might give you a 5-second rule or a quick state change, which is incredibly useful for daily life, but this is a different scale entirely.
A completely different scale. Osman is offering the opposite of a hack. He's offering a 27-year grind, or a 3-year all-out sprint of 10,000 reps a day.
Right. But even that sprint is a massive, life-altering commitment.
It is. So the question is, if the math is real, if doing these 10 million reps actually unlocks a higher level of consciousness, these latent powers, this profound peace, are we willing to do the work? Or are we just looking for a spiritual placebo?
That is the question. Do you want the fire, or do you just want a picture of a fire?
Oof, that's good. Do you want the fire or a picture of the fire?
If you want the fire, you have to do the counting. And again, if you're serious, check out his work. The YouTube channel is The Man from Oz, and the website is yogawellness786.com.
Well, on that note, I might go find a set of beads and see if I can hit 1,008 today, just to see what it feels like.
Remember, add the 8. Don't stop at 1,000.
I will not forget the 8. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Check out the numbers for yourself, and we'll see you next time.